Hey guys, now we probably all know that when you roll two dice, you can get these outcomes here. This is the sample space of rolling two dice. And you can see that the chance of getting a 7, a sum of 7, is 6 out of 36, or 1/6, or 0.16666. So that's the theoretical probability. I want to see what happens in reality. So I could get two dice and conduct this experiment a bunch of times. Or I could simulate it using a Google Sheet. And that's what I'm going to show you now. And I'm going to actually show you a few different simulations that I've made. I think I've got 6 here. Okay, so the first one is rolling two dice. Now, to roll one dice, you can get the numbers 1 to 6. So there's a function in here called randbetween. Okay, if I just delete that and type again, you go rand, and it tells you that random will give you a random number, but if we go randbetween, it'll give you the integer value between those two numbers inclusive, so including 1 and 6. So here I've got one dice will be a number 1, the other dice will be a number 2, and the sum, I just add those two together, will be 3. Like that'll be this one here. 1, 2, 3. Okay, 4 and 1 makes 5, etc. So I've got all the sums, and here I've got randbetween for all the dice. Then what I did to work out my probability is say how many trials did I do? And what I did was go count, and I'll count the number of values I have. So I'm going to count how many values there are here. And actually, if I go a little bit over, it doesn't matter, because it's only going to count how many are there. So it's going to tell me I have 52 values in that. And then I'm going to count if there are 7. So again, I go equals count if, and that is a conditional counting, depending on a condition that I put in. So I count if this range has any 7s in it. So I just count if the range is 7, and that tells me there are 8 7s in that range. And if I do that number divided by that number, I get my 15%, which is not quite my 17%. If I want to calculate again, I just got to input another number and all these numbers will change. Or if I delete a number, all the numbers will change. That's too big. Let me get a good number. Okay, there we go. Now that's the number I want, and maybe I want to save this from my report or something. So I don't want these random numbers to keep changing. So what I can do is just take that, copy, and I will paste special values only. So now it doesn't say rand anymore, it just says the numbers. So I can say theoretically we expect it to be 17%, and look, it is 17%. Okay, but that's kind of cheating. Let's leave it as random. Okay, that's the example. You got random, randbetween. Okay, this time we'll do a spinner, or picking a marble from a bucket. And in this case, all the sectors of the spinner are the same size. The 3 colors of marbles in the bucket have the same number of marbles. So there's an equal chance of each number, just like there was an equal chance of each number on the dice, right? So if that's true, I can just do randbetween, and it give me a number 1, 2, or 3. And then to assign it to a color, I'm going to use an ifs statement. So you can see here it says if, but because I'm going to have 3 different conditions, I'll write ifs. So if the random number is equal to 1, we'll call it red. If it's equal to 2, we'll call it blue. Equal to 3, we'll call it green. And you have to use the inverted commas here, the quotation marks. Okay, and that'll give you this. Again, I counted how many were in this column. Now this is important. I'm going to count. Now if you just do count, it counts numerical values. But if you do count A, that counts how many values there are. So I'm going to count how many of these words there are. Even if I go past, that's alright. Just how many words was that? That was 96. And then I'll go count if it says red, and there were 26 out of 96. So that's a bit less than a third. So I'll just might, yeah, there we go, perfect, 1/3. Okay, so perfect trial. So that's equal chance of getting red, blue, or green. What if you had a spinner like this? There's not equal chance of red, blue, and green. And I put quite random numbers here. I've got 40 degrees of the circle is red, 185 degrees is blue, 135 degrees is green. You can see that here. You can see the associated probabilities. What I did this time is again use randbetween between 1 and 360 degrees. Okay, so that's on my random numbers. But how did I assign a color? Well, I said ifs again. I said ifs, it's less than 41. Let's call it red. Okay, so red is 40 degrees, but I can only have less than or greater than. So I'm going to say if it's less than 41, so it's 40 and less. Now the priority here is important. The order is really important. So numbers less than 41 are red. Numbers greater than 40 but less than 226 are blue. But I don't have to put the greater than 40 because it already counts them out. So then I put 226 because 40 plus 185 is 225. And then all the rest are green. Now if you're familiar with if statements, in some spreadsheets you don't have to do this, but in Google Sheets you do. So we've got to consider all the rest is up to 360 degrees is green, so I have to put that in there. So there we go. So we get all the different colors there. Again, I count how many words I have in this column. I count how many of them say red, and I get, in this case, 19%, which is a bit different from my theoretical probability. If I just do something random over here, it changes, right? So I'm in the right ballpark, but it's not exactly right. So that's cool. Same idea with picking a marble. This time there's a different number of marbles in there. So again, I've assigned a random number between 1 and 9. If I get a 1, I'm going to call that red because there's 1 red. If I get a 2 or a 3, it's going to be called green. All right, so it's, how do you get 2 or 3? Well, it's less than 4, but not 1. And then if I get 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, so greater than 3, we'll call it blue. So there's all my answers. All right, and then I just, like before, so that's random between ifs, and over here I got count A for how many of the in total there is, and count if, how many say red. So you see here my values pretty good. 0.16 should be 0.11, 0.7 should be 0.67, 0.14 should be 0.22. Close enough. Now, if you want to do 2 at a time, 2 picks from the bucket, it's quite easy to do with replacement. Okay, so you just do it one time, red, green, blue, and then you do it a second time, red, green, blue. Okay, and this time I'm testing, is there a double? So I'm just testing if, so it's only one thing I'm testing, not three. So I just, instead of ifs, I'm just using if B5, if the word here matches this word here, if B5 equals D5, I'm going to write yes. If it doesn't match, like here, blue, red, I write no. Okay, because it's if, this is what happens if it's true, this is what happens if it's not true. Okay, and then I can count all the numbers, and I can count all the ones that say yes, and I can divide them to get my probability. By the way, what is that probability? Well, it's probability of a red, red plus a blue, blue. Sorry, red, red, or a blue, blue, or a green, green. Works out to be 41 on 81, which is about 51%. So here I'm a bit low. Let's try a different number. Hey, that's pretty good. That didn't change. That's interesting. Yeah, that's too big. That's pretty good. Yeah. So that's the idea. Okay. Random ifs, and then if. Okay. And then count A and count if. The last thing I did here, I did a pick a card. Again, if you got with replacement, it's easy. If you got without replacement, so you're keeping a card, it's you'll have to use a different kind of simulation. This is a bit too hard. So what I've done here is I've got a random number between 1 and 13, a random number between 1 and 4, and I said if I get an 11, I'm going to call it Jack. Let's call it capital J, Jack. If it's a 12, you call it Queen. If it's a 13, you call it a King. If it's any other number, you just call it the number that it is. Okay, and I'm going to copy that down there. And then this says, if this number is a 1, we're going to say it's hearts, 2 is clubs, 3 is diamonds, and 4 is spades. And there it is. And now if I'm going to use this, maybe I'll make these disappear. There's a few ways you can do that. You can hide cells, but the easiest way, I think, is just make them color white, and then you can't read them anymore, and just kind of make them disappear a bit. Hey, there's my cards. Okay, again, with replacement. With replacement. Okay. All right, hope this helps you think about what you could do, and yeah, good luck.